Welcome to Chris Parkin's Shooting Sports. This is the Hammerli Force B1 in Sports Grey. Now this is quite an unusual 2.2 rimfire because it uses a side lever action similar to a biathlon rifle, but it also uses the very popular 10 round Ruger compatible rotary magazines, and it will also fit the stick magazines from Ruger as well, which I think are the BX15 and the BX25. Stick with me because we're going to do a full review on this rifle. The rifle is available in this sports grey finish. It's also available in brown, walnut, all-weather black or antique grey. Barrel length options are 16 inch or 20 inch depending on which stock option you have. Overall length is 900mm or 35.5 inches. Overall weight is 2,319 grams, which is £5 1.6 ounces. The single stage trigger breaks at 1,985 grams, which is 70 ounces. So, you've seen me using the gun. It's a very interesting, quite quirky gun this, and if you want something different, definitely start looking at this because it really does have a few differences and things to offer about it. Not just the side lever toggle action. So, number one, we've got to go about it straight away first. This has actually got a detachable barrel. There's a collar here and it definitely works with the stock off, but if you pull that collar forwards, the barrel just slots out, and it's got a circumferential ball bearing system. Then you put the barrel back in, it locks back in position. Now in the UK this isn't actually advertising 2.2 WMR, it's just advertising 2.2 LR, but the gun itself is available in 2.2 WMR, and the magazine system, trigger system, everything like that, the bolt, it's all it's all interchangeable, it all use the same thing. It's just a case of swapping the barrels. And this gun's made in Germany, and I think it's been designed a little bit that way, so you can take the barrel out, make it a little bit more compact if it's kind of a bit of a wilderness rifle, something you want to be travelling with, and it's quite interesting. I'll put some pictures on screen and you can see it disassembled, and it really is very easy to do. It doesn't appear to be able to do it when it's in the stock, but out of the stock you literally just click that forward, barrel comes out and the reverse puts it back in. So the barrel screw cut, it's 16 inches, 410mm. You can actually, in some of the different stock variants, have this as a 20 inch barrel. But of course, that thread on the end, it's ½ inch by 28. You can put a sound moderator or muzzle brake on it if you need a muzzle brake. And in terms of stock options, this is a sport grey. There's also a brown, a walnut, an all-weather black, and an antique grey. So it seems to me that this one comes in at the lowest price point. It's about £750. And that is probably the stock I'd go for because it seems to suit the rifle perfectly, and I don't think you might get a little bit more rigidity in the forend on some of the heavier stocks, but until I've seen one I can't tell you that for sure. The barrel does free float, but it is a little bit flexible, the forend, so you do have to be a tiny bit delicate with it. Don't be too brutal because you don't want to be bending the forend and not nudging the barrel and moving your point of impact. Now, the magazine system is, well, it does actually say on it Ruger, there's no question about that. It's a Ruger magazine. It's interchangeable with any other Ruger magazine, either these 10 round rotary ones or the longer stick magazines, I think the BX15, BX25. One thing I will say is that in a 1022 semi-automatic, these things always get covered in wax and lubricant and powder residue, and they're a big cleaning issue, and you've got to disassemble them and clean them out quite frequently. Of course, in a bolt action, you don't have that problem, and although this is a side lever, it's still kind of a bolt action because that chamber is sealed until all the gases and all the bullets and things have left, and you've not got quite that same cyclical rate, you've not got quite the same masses of ammunition going through them, so you don't really suffer from having a 10 round Ruger magazine the same way you do with a 1022, where in fairness, in a 1022, they can be a little bit less reliable. That pops in and out the gun, no problems at all, and you've got that really nice big side lever which is ambidextrous and just drops them straight out. You can see that on camera. I'm pretty much doing that all the time and I'm swapping between them, and you've got no problems loading or changing the magazines over. One round, clicks in the top, push it back, 9 more follow it. Job's a good one. So other things about this rifle are, it has actually got adjustable length of pull, and there is a button on the back here, and if you press that button, look what happens. Click, and that comes out. Now the length of pull is actually really long. At minimum setting there, it's 365mm, which is 14.5 inches, which is pretty long for most guns. But if you go all the way out there, that is now 16.25 inches, which is 415mm. That is really, really quite a long length to pull, and it is actually still shootable, but to be fair, all the way down at 14.5, it's pretty much spot on for me. And it's longer than most rimfires, because rimfires often suffer from being far too small, and you can't get yourself spaced away enough from the scope. This one works perfectly, and to be fair, this element optics is suited it absolutely spot on. It's a 2:16, 50mm front end, and of course with a Picatinny rail on top of the receiver, you've no trouble fitting it. Now, the other factor is, it looks quite simple, but it works really well. I think if it were my gun, I'd probably stick it in place, but you can change the cheek piece height on that. It's a slim rubber cheek piece, so you do actually get a really nice cheek weld on it. It fits under your cheekbone without displacing your jaw. But that, it literally lifts out like that, and you can put it in the other way up to make it a little bit lower down. Now, if you do put it in that way up, it's hard to get out. So you need to take this off completely, and you can kind of just nudge it out from the inside, and it will just lift out. So the first time you do it, it's a little bit harder to do, but there you go, and that's what you got. And to be fair, I've shot it like that the whole time I've had it. Trigger weight on it, it's not the lightest trigger, it's a single stage trigger. There is a little bit of creep on it, but it's Ruger 1022 compatible, so you can change any of the trigger systems you want from the massive Ruger 1022 armoury of accessories from the world over. Trigger weight is 1985 grams, which is 70 ounces. So it is, you know, it takes a steady squeeze to make sure it goes off, but it is quite consistent. And to be honest, when you're shooting it, you don't seem to notice it that much, although it does sound a little bit heavier on paper. The release system there, as we said before, is perfect. You've got plenty of space in the trigger guard, and there is actually a little inner safety blade as well. Stops you, pulling the trigger by mistake, and it feels a little bit more like a two-stage because of that safety blade. It is a little bit pointy on the end. I'm not sure why they've left it so pointy, but that's not really something you come into contact with, so it's probably a theoretical question mark rather than an actual problem. Length of pull is 365 to 415mm, which is 14.5 to 16.25 inches. Now, we get back to the major point on this rifle. The major point is the side lever system. Now, you'll have seen me on video shooting this at slow speed from the bench, and I will not deny that when you shoot this at slow speed from the bench, especially if you've got a rear supporting hand like this and you're on a bag at the back, you can't really push that gun forwards without it coming away from your shoulder. So you do sort of develop a technique of keeping some fingers on the grip and closing the bolt like that with your fingertip, or you can, go on the front of the trigger guard underneath. Actually, that's a little bit slower, and when you need precision shooting, you do have to be wary of the fact that you are disturbing the position of the gun a little bit more than is ideal, certainly more than you would with a bolt action. But doesn't affect the accuracy. And the thing is this, you'll see me shooting in the video, when you are actually in a more hunting orientation of position with a forehand on the forend of the gun, that becomes really fast and you can shoot it beautifully well. And like any gun, has its own little handling quirks and eccentricities, but you soon get used to them. And actually, I think it's got such character because of that. Yes, it's not as smooth as an Anschutz biathlon rifle, but it's nothing like the price of an Anschutz biathlon rifle. And quite frankly, I rather like it because I just like the fact it's designed to do its game differently, and it's compatible with the Ruger 1022 accessories, so that gives you huge versatility in terms of what you want to do to the rifle, trigger mechanisms and magazine options. But you've got the slightly quirky, unusual, you know, it's a thing that brings it up at the range. I took this to the club and people go, oh, what's that? How does that work? Show me all about that. And if you want people to be interested in your rifle, they will be interested in this. Availability of 22 WMR barrels might affect people's decisions as to whether they want to swap and change or not, but to be fair, the rifle held zero pretty well between actual barrel swaps, and because it had been in and out the stock in between times. I'll put a picture on screen. There's a screw at the front, a screw at the rear, undo those, and it just lifts and slots out. It's nothing complicated or problematic to do. One thing I will say is it's a crossbolt safety at the front of the trigger guard here, and if you do shoot slowly and you have to kind of, you know, put your fingers under the trigger guard to some extent just to click that bolt shut, it's easy to click that back into the safe position, which is certainly not an unsafe thing, but it's just something you'll maybe get used to. But like I said, it's got its own handling techniques and you will get used to it and develop what suits you. In terms of the stock, you can see we've got the M-LOK rail here. Put all the accessories on you want. I've shot it from a bipod just because I like shooting from a bipod, but when I shot this from sticks there was no issue clamping it in place on the tripod clamp, and it was quite enjoyable to shoot from there too. And of course in that position you also appreciate that incredibly fast bolt manipulation and rate of fire. Great fun on steel, probably good fun for hunting as well, but again, it's perhaps more of a hunting gun and a steel shooting gun than a precision target gun, because although it's accurate, I think it was a little bit more ammunition fussy than some guns. The SK Match was particularly accurate in it, and that would be my choice if I was using it for target things. Cellular and Bellow hollow point was extremely good for hunting requirements, so that would be my choice there. And velocities from the barrel were actually very acceptable, and of course with that sound moderator on the thread, you've got a lovely subsonic gun. You haven't got all the noise of a reciprocating 1022 mechanism, and you've got a little bit more speed than a regular bolt action. Right, I hope you've enjoyed watching that review. Please like, subscribe, comment, don't forget to click the notification bell and keep track of my regular uploads. Thank you for watching, bye for now.